Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Working Horse to the Gym. I'm here with Ken, as you can see, and we've talked about this on recent videos, the fact that we are actually going to be selling Ken and the two fillies. Well, this morning, we are going to take a bit of a field trip up to the place that we may be selling him to. We have kind of decided, if at all possible, we wanted to keep Ken especially close to home so I can decide, so I can kind of keep an eye on him even in the next few years. So we have found this place close to home that we're going to even show you guys today, and we're kind of excited about it. It's actually at a school. So he would be used to actually help students be more comfortable around horses and even to learn to drive horses. So we will be heading up here very soon and show you around their place. This will be my first time up there. I don't know anything about the school as of yet, or I do know some, but not a lot. And so I'm excited to learn more about it and see if it's going to be the right fit for Ken. We also have, like I said, the two fillies that will be sold also, and we have, I don't know, I'm not even going to tell you much about it right now, but we have a buyer that's quite certain that would be taking the two of these together. So that's a great thing. There you go. Some eyes are dirty. Bill, your noses. So anyways, we're pretty excited about that. We'll share more about that also as we get closer to that point. And there again, that's a home that we will be able to keep close contact with the owner of these, and we'll be able to even share even as they progress, even in their life and working years. So let's get going and try to work on one home at a time. So we are here now with Toby, and this is the farm and school that we were thinking about possibly doing something with. And this is Jaded, okay. She's here also, and we're going to get a tour and find out a little bit more about this place.
Yeah, absolutely. So this school has been around since the 1920s. It actually originally was purely a summer camp back then. And then in the 30s, it became a boarding school as well. Started pretty small with a couple folks. There's a lot of information about it online and some great documentary videos that have been made. But yeah, it's been around for a long time and has been pretty integrated with the community up here in the Adirondacks and the Lake Placid region for a while. And one of the really unique things about it is that the students who go here are directly involved with chores and the maintenance of the school. They clean up the parts of the building where they live. They have to clean up their houses. And part of the chores they do is they come here and they help us with barn chores in the mornings and evenings. Okay. We also do a riding program with a lot of our horses. So many of our students are international students, and they've actually never even seen a horse in some cases. Some of them have been riding their entire life. So we get a big spectrum of students here. So in the spring, and especially during camp, when we have a lot of students, our big focus as farmers is our riding program. Okay. However, also all the food we produce goes straight to the dining hall of this school. Okay. So all the gardens we have, all the sheep we have, the pigs we're going to be getting, the eggs we have from the chickens in the coop, the meat birds that our kids process as well. The students will actually help us with that. Neat. All that goes right back to the dining hall and into the food that they eat. Neat. So it's all very contained here. It's a pretty unique place for sure. There's not too many schools that offer this sort of opportunity, and we're pretty proud of that. There has been a history, pretty large history in the past, of using draft animals here. Mm-hmm. That sort of fell out of style as the school got bigger and it became tougher to do the scale of stuff they were doing with just horses. Right. We also have a fairly sizable, maybe Jaden can speak to it better than me, fairly sizable maple stand on the property, and we tap about 500 trees as well. Yeah. And so that's another thing that I personally would love to start using some draft animals for, is pulling sap around into the boiling shack. But in the past, they've used them in the gardens, and there's photos on some of the walls in the barn of some horses taking students and teachers around campus in carts and things. And so there has been some of that, but yeah, it hasn't been here for a while. And with my experience and some of the connections I've got through DAPNet and other folks, I'm really excited to try to bring some of that back and start my own sort of journey into it. So yeah, that's part of the reason we're really excited to have you here and talk with you and be, interested in some of the horses you have and especially your experience doing this sort of stuff and working with folks. Okay. So, yeah.
So you personally, what experience have you had with draft horses? You do have some.
Yeah, so I grew up with draft horses on our small farm down in Cooperstown, New York. Okay. It was just our family farm. We were fully grass-fed beef and pig operation. And we used draft horses mostly for logging. We had wood-fired stove in both the barn and in our house, and so we did a lot of firewood processing. And so I had a single draft horse, a big Percheron, who we used for that quite a bit. We also would do wagon rides and things in Cooperstown nearby and things like that. And so that's kind of my experience with it, and I've been getting more into it as I've moved back into this area and gotten more connected with horses again. You'll see during the tour as well, we've got a couple old sleighs in the hayloft of this barn, and we've got 3 or 4 old collars. Like, there's remnants of the draft program here still kicking around, but we're still, we would just sort of be rebirthing that. We don't have any carts. We don't have any trailers or wagons. We're looking to purchase some of those in the future. I have I have a really nice, one of the neoprene harnesses, like one of the nice ones for the draft horse that I had when I was younger, and would love to potentially use that again on someone. So we've got some stuff, but we are just sort of starting out. I'm personally really looking forward to showing some of these students other ways in which we can work with horses and how they can help us in our daily lives, not just riding and not just pretty pasture pals, which is great for some of them. But I think the students are really interested in seeing how else they can be involved in, sustainable farming and being a little more connected with the process of agriculture. So hoping to do a bit of that too. Anything I missed?
You got it all.
Oh, well, thanks.
Well, let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's go have a look. You actually want to start in here? You can start in this barn. So this is our main barnyard. This barn's the newer of the two. This is where we keep our sheep in the winter.
Okay.
And then this will become additional horse stalls in the summer. So this is our flock right now. We've got, Jane, how many we got? 14? 13?
9 plus 6.
9 plus 6, so 15. So these are our ewes, and those 6 over there are our pregnant mamas. Okay. They're going to be starting lambing here in late March, early April, hopefully all in April. And our students have the opportunity to be involved with that lambing process. So they're actually going to be sleeping up in the hayloft on lamb watch.
Really?
They've got walkie-talkies to call down to farmers if anybody starts to have kids in the middle of the night, or lambs, I should say. But they're very sweet, obviously. The students come in here and read books to them on Fridays with Barnyard Book Club. So there's a lot of interaction between the students here and our animals, and so imagine. They're pretty wonderful little friends.
This reminds me of a farm we had back in Vermont.
Oh yeah.
I never went to it, but it was a private school farm. And
is it the Putney School or
no? East Hill School.
Oh, East Hill. Yeah.
But
I've heard of that too.
You've heard of that?
Yeah.
They haven't been in operation for quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, but when you there's so few places like this, that you catch wind of the ones that used to exist.
But there's one in Putney too?
Yeah, so the Putney School down in Putney, Vermont is kind of...
Which is not too far from where I'm from.
Yeah, it's kind of a channel for students from this school. So we have like 4th to 9th graders here, mostly middle schoolers. And then the Putney School is high school,ers. And so many of our students go off to there. They also have a great farm. They do dairy with Vermont Creamery and stuff like that, or Green Mountain Creamery. So... yeah, they also have a pretty nice farm and a good-sized herd of horses as well. We're also have the claim to fame, we believe, I haven't done too much research into this, that we're the highest elevation farm in the state of New York.
Probably.
So we're pretty proud of that, too, but it's why we've got all this snow.
What is the elevation up here?
Right now, we're at 2,150 feet. Yeah. So we're above Lake Placid, and obviously, as you can tell, we've got quite a bit of snow this year, and so that definitely makes our lives interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all this stuff, obviously, we keep it very organized for the students because they come in for chores and need to know how things are going. This is a chart of our pregnant moms, and it tells the students what the ewes are getting each morning and evening when they're out here to do chores. We're feeding the moms right now, so they're not doing that, but we try our best to keep it as organized as possible, so even folks without a lot of experience can come out and do this. So that's the whole point of this sort of educational farm, is getting folks who may not have the experience out here to have the experience.
So how many kids are actually here?
So During the school year, we have around 80 students.
Really?
Usually, right now, I think 50 of them are boarded and are staying here. Another 30 or so are day students, and they live in like Saranac Lake and Lake Placid and Keene, and they come for the day during the week. But 50 of them live in the dorm buildings that are kind of, if you went past the farm and continued up the roads, there's the main building and the school and the classes and all the buildings that house them are all sort of up the hill, tucked back away. And then during the summer, we have around 180 students that come for 7 weeks. They're split between 2 camps, junior and senior camp, and we've got 12 riding staff that come to help run the riding program. We've got, at that point, there's 8 of us farmers on staff as well to help manage the chores that come in and stuff. So when we go over to the horse barn, I'll talk a bit more about the amount of horses we have and kind of what that riding program looks like. And hopefully Jaden can jump in on anything in the summer, because I'm fairly new here. I only started in December, so there's still a lot to learn, and I haven't seen a summer yet. But I can talk a little bit about it. So yeah, that's about the students we've got. And yeah.
Thing about this blue barn is that when it's springtime and there's like lots of pasture, like nice pasture, we'll send the sheep out to Dexter to graze, and then this becomes 3 big horse stalls. So we'll have usually about 14 horses in the summer, and then right now we just have 7.
Yep.
So like more people, more students, more staff, more horses, more animals.
Lots of
Huge
stuff happening.
operation during the summer.
Wow.
And when Jaden says Dexter, that's our largest pasture. That's sort of down beyond the tree line there. It's where we used to have our potato fields, where the pigs will go. It's where the chickens will go, and some mobile coops. It's where these guys will all go in mobile fencing pastures that we move around each day. But yeah, this becomes 4 or 3 big horse stalls in the summer. Usually we want 14 to 15 horses for that summer riding program, just because we have so many students. The camp is interesting in the sense where there's kind of 2 things you're required to do as a camper. You have to swim, you have to learn to swim, and you have to ride a horse.
Okay.
And it does not cost extra to do either of those 2 things. It's kind of a rare program. Usually at places like this, it's an extra fee to do stuff with the horses. That's not the case here. You are involved with the horses, whether you're a student at the school or a camper at camp. You're going to be involved with the animals we've got here, which I think is really lovely. Anyway, that's the sheep. We source all of our hay from some folks up in Essex County. This is our main pasture. They're out during the day, during the winter. There's some of them you can see out there. They're up here during the winter, and we cart hay out for them every day. Recently, it's been by hand because our vehicles have been down and can't get through the snow, so we've been hauling hay in sleds, but we make sure there's enough out there for all 7 of them, and then they come in during the evenings because it's just been too cold. In the summer, that swaps, and they're out during the evenings, and then they come in during the day for riding programs and things like that. But yeah, right now they're out. This is our main horse barn, kind of split into 2 sections. This is what we call uppers in the main area. You can actually see one of our older sleighs up there, just to the left.
Oh yeah.
Kind of an old, smaller pony sleigh, but still, there's also another couple carts, like some trotter carts and stuff tucked back up there, and a couple collars in the tack room as well. So there's pieces of it around. All the horses have their own box stalls. We don't do ties. Some of these are going to be expanded. Some of them are plenty big and some of them aren't. This used to be a dairy barn, as you can probably tell a little bit. There were some old stanchions, and especially in this stall here, you can see they've got that sort of elevated cement section there where they used to be fed. So definitely a bit aged, and we have some dreams to update it, but it works pretty well for our needs, and the horses find it comfortable. This section is by far the shortest in height. The lower section's a bit taller, and so that's where, well, ironically,
all the animals come through this way?
No. So there's another entrance into the lower section, and ironically, that's actually where our smallest horse and our largest horse is kept. So the smallest one's down there too. This stall's going to get expanded at some point. There's another stall in here that becomes 2 in the summer, so that we've got enough. This stall splits into 2. Right now, it's just 1 for a horse who likes a bit more space. And then there's all of these down here. So this is the lower section, and that's the other entrance. So for horses that are a little bit larger and need a bit more headroom, they come in through that door.
Right.
This stall as well, we're going to knock this out and make another double stall here. We're interested in, part of the reason we're interested in some of the horses you have and other horses is all of our horses are, the youngest one we have is 17. One of them, Tucker, is 28 and has been here for the larger portion of his life, which is great, which means they really know what they're doing and they know the program. But it does mean that when we have larger students or when we have more advanced students, putting them on older horses is a bit tough. Most of our horses are also, I think Sterling is probably around 15.3 or 16 hands at most, and Bo is not much shorter. So like the height wise as well, the size is tough. For larger students, for me, for anybody else who wants to ride, it's a challenge. And it also, you know, I'm interested in getting into more draft programs, and none of them are really equipped for that. So the idea is that we're looking for some larger, younger horses, and that's the funny part, is that Ken, even at 16, would be the youngest of our herd. But you know, that's kind of where we're thinking to sort of expand this program, is what horses would fill the holes that we've currently got with our current herd. So that's what we're looking for. Anyway, this would become a double. This is where our little Shetland pony Cross lives. He's a fun, sassy little guy who's been here about as long as Tucker has. He's he's fun. And then this is one of our halflingers who has this larger stall.
Okay.
So they all come in through this lower door here. And that's kind of the horse barn in a synopsis. We have dreams to, you know, raise the roof in the upper part up here to give a bit more height for horses. There's far too much space, I think, in the loft anyway that could be used. But we store a bunch of stuff up there.
Is that accurate?
Huh?
The hands?
Kind of. I mean, it's mostly here for students to get an idea of what horse measurements look like. But on the whole, it's, you know, probably not like an actual tape measure sort of thing, but you know, when we say, oh, we have a horse that's 16 hands, students can get us a rough idea. But yeah, obviously you see a lot of the stuff in here is educational. We've got sections on our horses and diagrams on, you know, hoof diagrams and hoof structure, leg structure and conformation, all that sort of stuff. We don't talk about it too much with students, but sometimes we have classes that come out and get involved with a lot more of the biology of the farm animals and what happens to them in the summer and in the winter and so on. And then this, I'll show you real quick.
Did you have any teaching experience before this? I mean, you're just very good at talking.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I kind of fell head first into the teaching world.
You got heat in here.
Yeah,
Nice.
This is our nice, warm and heated tack room. So we've got a couple older collars that were from who knows where the harnesses went to, but there is a history of those of that here. As far as my history, I didn't go to school for teaching. I studied environmental science, and then I sort of fell into teaching at the Wild Center.
You seem like a natural.
Oh, well, thank you. I taught a bit in Washington as well. So it is something I love. It's just not something I ever saw myself going into, but I do enjoy it. Anyway, you can see sort of a continuation of how many records we keep for our horses. So these are some horses we don't have anymore, or they were rentals. This is their tack for the summer. So it all gets assigned to them in custom fit. We have a woman from Vermont, the saddle gal, who comes and fixes all of our stuff and assigns it to horses and makes sure it's all the proper size. You'll also note we do a lot of English for our riding program. I've mostly ridden Western in my life, and my hope is to bring a little bit of that here too. Yep. But this program is very historically English. So
do you have any saddles big enough for Ken?
Well, that's a good question. I do. I personally have some back home that would be big enough that I would bring up. We have a couple English ones that probably would be. I used to ride my Percheron with a English saddle where the spine was broken on it, so I could just splay it out flat on his back.
I bought a really, I guess they call it synthetic one.
Yeah.
Cheap one. You know?
Yeah, sure.
But it was for draft, and I had that for a while. But.
Yeah, some of them, sometimes it can be really hard to find ones for those larger horses, but you always got to get creative. Every saddle I've had for a draft has certainly been of the lower quality. It's just whatever fits. Yeah. Students, I think, really value it. I mean, people who came to this school in the 60s and 70s, who came to camp in the 60s and 70s and earlier, you know, periodically come back and visit and say one of their favorite parts was being involved with the farm, being involved with the barn and the horses and the animals. And so I think that's a lot of value. I mean, there's other things that are great about this school. There's a lot of skiing that happens. There's a lot of, you know, trips and hikes, and there's a wood shop that any of the students have access to, and a weaving shop and pottery and all these other things. So there's always things for them to be interested in. What I really love is that all the students come up to the barn. They all help with chores to some degree, whether they're into it or not, because even if it doesn't build an interest, it builds confidence and it builds responsibility, which I think is really valuable.
So back with Ken.
Sure.
So what would you be like, say he was to come up here next week, what would happen with him? Would he be put right to doing something as far as, even if it's just having kids lead him around or kids drive him around, would that be happening on a semi-daily basis?
So as far as moving him around pretty daily, that's probably something, I mean, in the mornings with chores, it's probably something that would fall on farmers during the winter, right? Because not a lot of horse stuff happens with the students until it gets safer for them to be with the horses outside, whether riding or walking them around. It's just very icy and very, obviously this isn't the most level ground in the world.
Right.
And so we try to make sure safety first with all of that.
But I shouldn't say that as students or you.
Right. So there would definitely be some degree in which we would be either walking him around or using him or getting him familiar with the space. Like I mentioned, we're still trying to expand our draft program here as much as we can. It's just starting out and I'm still new here. So like carts and things we're still looking for. I have a harness that might fit him. And so things like that, if I did and I have one that fits, I would ground drive him just around campus, down to Dexter, up the, and things like that. One of the things we'd be interested in doing is some very light logging work, mostly for firewood, pulling smaller trees off the hill. And potentially we do have a sled that goes behind our bulldozer, which is out back, that's pulled for our sap. And that's easy enough to augment to be a sled that he can pull. And we are starting tapping here at the end of this month, and then probably starting to sugar once the temperatures get right. So that would probably be a draft horse's first task here, is helping to move a lot of that around. And then come the warmer months, I think something that could be a fairly common task is either lightly turning a garden bed or something, or something we've talked about with other folks as well is giving rides. Wagon rides are similar to people visiting, parents visiting with their students, things like that. I also very much want to get some students who are interested learning about that process in driving. Some of them have some of that experience. I've spoke with some of our students who have driven in the past and have horses that they currently drive. So some of them have done it. Some of them, I'm sure, don't even know it's a possibility to do with horses. And so honestly, one of the big things that will probably happen a lot is just showcasing that as a horse opportunity, talking about what a harness looks like, what the differences are, how they work from a physics perspective even, having students drive around, talk about what that used for, what's the history of it, things like that. A lot of it would be educational first in that regard, and then getting them potentially toward that driving. I'm excited to hopefully find some students here that really find it interesting. And it's also not the sort of thing that I want to rush into. I want to do it right. I want to make sure it's the right time. I want to make sure it's the right horse. I want to make sure it's the right place for the right horse. We take a lot of pride in our horses being over cared for because they are constantly getting checked. Students muck all their stalls in the morning, replace all their water, replace all their hay, and then the evening group of students bring them in, pick their feet, brush them off. They're constantly checking for any sort of health changes or anything like that. There is, in any given day, 30 different people looking at each of these horses and having different eyes on them. So we're constantly interacting with them and making sure that there's nothing wrong. Anything that is of concern gets voiced to the farmers. So there is always some level of interaction. We also have, right over here, we have the vet come out and do dietary assessments on each of them and give us specifically what sort of grain or dietary things they need. This is mostly for camp. Students during camp will set up grain for horses and feed them. During the school year, we do it ourselves. And so each horse gets a very specific diet cultivated to them by the vet. Same thing with farrier work. We have a farrier named Zach, who's out of Vermont, who comes over and does most of our horses. He was just here a couple weeks ago. He'll be back in March at the beginning to assess feet and whether or not anybody needs shoes for this riding season or not. I try not to, but sometimes you can't help it. So constantly lots of eyes on horses and lots of professional eyes because, again, this program doesn't run if our horses can't, do what they're supposed to. We're constantly talking about the line between a working farm and a petting zoo here because it's a thin line to walk, and we don't want to diverge too much into just a bunch of pretty animals to look at, So there would definitely be a space, I think, here for a solid, well-educated draft horse to do moderate work. Is that going to be every single day of out pulling a log or moving sap? Probably not. Is it every day of a horse being walked around or led or moved or me tacking up and doing a little drive around the barnyard? Sure, that's far more feasible. Especially during the summer when we have 12 extra horse hands, here and present.
Well, with Ken, I mean, he hasn't had a harness on for 2 months.
Right.
And he's just going out to pasture, come
Sure.
back in. It's nothing.
Right.
And that's semi-okay.
Right.
But it'd just be so much better if he was doing a
getting
little
work.
bit.
And yeah, I do remember you mentioning that he's in a box stall now and kind of moving around because of that cellulitis going on. So yeah, he would be out every day, turned out in a mixed herd. They're a good set of horses. Obviously, there's a very distinct pecking order out there.
Oh, yeah.
And that just sort of is the way it goes. Right. That changes obviously in the summer when we've got 5 new rental horses, right? They always drop right down to the bottom of that particular order.
Yeah.
So there is always the opportunity to be out and moving. We don't just dump a bale of hay out like in one spot. We spread it around so there's movement, and they're constantly walking through the fields, which we think is really valuable. We also noticed that some of our horses, some of our younger, like one of our quarter horses, Luna, her conformation's not great just because she hasn't been worked. She's missing some muscle in her shoulder. Right. She's sore in some places, and so a lot of that changes once the spring arrives and we can ride and work a bit more with some of our students. So that's another piece of it. It's winter and we're hunkered down and trying to stay warm for now. We've made a lot of changes recently that have helped. These are heated buckets.
I was going to say, how do you keep that from freezing?
Yeah, no, so those are heated. They're all plugged in. So they keep it right around, 60, 70 degrees, something like that. The horses love it. Way easier than constantly breaking apart ice.
Yeah.
Because we had a couple nights it gets down to negative 14 and all their buckets are frozen. So those are heated, which are great. We've shifted to hay nets, which also seems to help a lot for some of them. Some of them don't really care too much about it. But we also have, like on that board over there, a set amount of hay that each of them get based on certain things. Right. So it's definitely not a, silver bullet sort of solution to all these horses. They get very specific diets and responses to what they need. Some of them and we do the same with meds. Our vet, Martha, who's over in Elizabethtown, Fern, this older quarter horse right here with the scar on her nose, she gets very specific meds because she came to us, hi Jeremy, she came to us with some stomach ulcers. And so we've since been working on those, or maybe they were liver, I'm not sure, some sort of ulcers. And so she's always been sensitive about her stomach area, and so we always try to make sure that we communicate that to students. All of our horses are great with their feet. Some of them are a little crotchety about it. Some of them, when it's particularly cold, we put certain students on certain horses based on experience level and things like that. So it's a wide variety. Tucker, who's in here, who's 28, he's been here probably 25 years. There's not a thing that horse won't do. He's great with even the youngest of 4th graders. Yeah. Our main goal with all of our horses, and even with some of our sheep that we're really particular friends with, is that they're going to live their life here. And like Tucker, for example, and Brownie, they're not going anywhere. Right. They will probably pass away in that field or put down here when the time comes, if it comes to that. Because they just have such a history here. Same with most of our horses. They're just super well known. I mean, our 4th graders are working on bios for our horses that are going to go up on the websites, all the little nicknames and stories and which ones are their friends in the herd. I mean, they are kind of staples of this place. And we wouldn't ever consider sending one off to an auction or a meat farm simply because they're no longer worth our needs. Yeah. We would find a place for that. And, at some point, a horse becomes a pasture pal, but there's still uses. You still teach students how to, pick their feet on Tucker or brush them off, or clean their stall.
And this school has been in existence since?
The 30s. Wow. So, a long time. I genuinely believe that we as a team are putting, the health and safety of our animals before any of the other concerns. Obviously, there's a certain idea here that we want students to apply and be accepted and be interested in coming, and we want it to look pretty, and we want it to look, there's a difference between how this farm looks, as you can tell, than the farm that I ran as a kid.
No, it looks wonderful.
We haven't swept in here yet, but when we have 14 students coming up and they sweep the whole barn and we keep everything super organized, we try to keep it looking nice. However, we do that to the extent that we can. If somebody says, hey, can we have the horses in the lower pasture because we have a student coming a family coming to visit who might come here and it would look pretty. If it's -10, I'm going to say no. I'm sorry, but they won't be out there. There's no shelter down there. That's not happening. We try to when we can, obviously, if they desire the horses to be somewhere and they can be, sure. But the first concern is what's best for the animals And then the second concern is what's best for the school. Yeah, a lot of, I mean, again, because we've been around for so long, there's been people involved in this riding program for decades, and they're interested in seeing it do well, and they're interested in continuing to be involved. I mean, some of our riding counselors are from, Wales and from Spain. I mean, they come from all over the world to come and be a part of this program, which is great. Brings in a whole bunch of different experiences and perspectives on horses, which is, in my opinion, a great aspect to connect with other horse people, right? Folks have different ideas on how to do stuff. And I think that's something that interests me about him, is that he's, in my opinion, just about the right age for a horse that would be potentially ushering in a new sort of program here, would be pretty solid for students to work around and with, because, I mean, I'm excited to one day see him as well and get an idea more directly. But and just
Ken can be pretty intimidating too, because he's pretty good size.
He's pretty sizable as well. 2 of them is a bit much, but obviously with our facilities, it's difficult for us to manage 2. And so starting with 1, in my opinion, is also a solid route, just because it's when you're doing single drives and things like that, the process is a little simpler to start with for students. It's quite a bit.
And he drives so nice. I mean, with somebody with him, anybody can drive that horse. That type of thing.
Yeah, which is exactly what we'd be looking for with this sort of thing. So it also seems like the sort of horse that would fit well with the program and be used enough where he can, still have that muscle form and feel useful, but not like he's running a logging program for somebody, So it's.
But yeah, he still could do a little firewood.
Right, sure. He could do a little firewood. He could turn a single bottom plow. He could, some of those littler things. Sure. I mean, that sort of stuff is what we would probably be doing anyway. Doing gardens with animals makes so much sense to me. Doing logging with horses makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, you tear up timberlands when you put a skid steer or a bulldozer in there, and a horse or an oxen will, in many cases, step around a small sapling and not tear up your ground so much. So she's one of, Tucker and her look fairly similar, but she's one of our younger horses here, at about probably 17 or 18, though. Don't quote me on that. And then those are the 2 halfies down there. Hi, you. That's Tucker, the sort of other. Yes, Fern, I know. There's a bit of a sign of that.
You really do spread the hay around, don't you?
Well, yeah, and they do a good chunk of that themselves as well. So yeah, there's plenty of little running sheds as well in here, mostly to get out of the wind.
All you need is a little sled, and Ken can do all that.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be nice too, because we keep getting our side-by-side stuck. Yeah.
Well, if this is something I would suggest, I mean, I like the idea of him coming here. I would suggest you coming down to the farm.
Sure. I mean, I'd love to see it regardless.
Even
to see
for
in
an
the
hour,
videos.
just to throw a harness on him and just to show you what you need to do.
And I also think there's just great opportunity here for a connection with you going forward with this program. Your experience, you're not too far away.
Right.
You have a lot of great connections as we try to expand our sort of, our tool base and, what we're going to be using. And so that's something else that I value as well. But yeah, getting out to the farm and seeing it, after seeing it in all those videos, sure. I mean, I'd be definitely interested in seeing that. I don't know how much time you guys got. You want to see the chicken coop?
Sure.
I know it's a little less interesting than the horses, but it's kind of neat to see. So this chicken coop, I think, was built in the 70s, a little after this barn was built. And I think we've got about 100 and... it's okay. They're probably not going to come over there. It's a little too snowy, I think. So this is another one of the chores the students do in the morning and evenings. All these eggs go to the dining hall as well. And especially with the egg prices right now, we're very happy about having this many. So we've got about 120, 130 or so in here. And we just ordered about another 100 or so.
All kinds of breeds, I see.
All kinds of mixed breeds. We like different colored eggs. The kids like different colored eggs. Folks who get, a dozen eggs really like that they all come in different colors. They will peck the snow off your boots. They like that too. But yeah, the kids come in and are responsible for mucking this out, giving grain, giving water, collecting eggs, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, we've been having some issues with frostbitten combs this year and some frostbitten feet. We try to combat that as much as we can and not let them out when it's super cold, but it's also nice for them to have that outdoor access. So, in the summer, they move into mobile coops that go through the fields, and then a lot of these guys will become soup hens and stuff, and they'll be processed by our students.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's definitely one of the nicer coops I've been in my life, that's for sure. This was built by students and faculty back in the 70s, just like our maple shack and all that sort of stuff.
Brenda loves her birds.
They're a pretty happy flock, I gotta say. We don't have too many issues, and we're pretty fortunate to not have any of the viral stuff come through or knock any of them out. It's just amazing how much it costs to buy chicks now. I mean, we bought less chickens this year than we normally do and spent more money. I mean, it's just crazy. So
We've got 3 birds, and that's all we need.
there you go.
All the eggs we need.
We have, pardon me, ladies, we have some of our 4th graders are actually incubating eggs right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're going to see if they can get about 7 or so to hatch.
Try to get them.
Yeah, so we try to involve the students in the classes in as much of the farm as we can. A lot of the talk obviously is about biology and environmental science and whatnot, but we always encourage the teachers and faculty to get involved with us whenever they want to, if their lesson overlaps with something, or, the math class has always been involved with sugaring and doing the calculations and all that sort of stuff.
What's with the high building here?
Huh?
What's with the high building?
Oh, so that actually used to be where we keep grain. So
it used
chicken
to
feed was up there. Then we just had mice and rats just proliferating in it, so we haven't bothered with it for a while. But yeah, that's all grain storage up there.
You need a bunch of cats.
But yeah, well, we've got one in the barn office who we can see. Her name's Ruby. Problem is she's a little chunky with her winter weight and has decided she's tired of catching mice. So, So that's kind of the barnyard in the winter. Obviously, we have a bunch of other pastures and things that we utilize, and there's the maple stand and bunch of other areas. We've got half of a larger lake on the other side of campus. It's called Round Lake. That the camp goes right down to. Yeah, that's where they go swimming over there. The senior camp is all those blue buildings, and kind of behind these trees is where like the rest of the school is with all the classrooms and stuff. Okay. So it's about, I don't know the exact number, a little over 200 acres in total, and it goes back up the trees here, and we have a trail on the property for Balanced Rocks, which is that mountain up there. So lots of space, and it's absolutely beautiful. And there's a lot of different ways in which we use it for the farm. Down along the road as you drive up is all these raised beds on the left and flowers on the right. And we've got 2 greenhouses up there, 50 foot and 100 foot. And we're going to do a rather large potato field this year as well. So we do a lot of crop production. And we just recently finished our crop plan, so that's exciting. We're moving into ordering a bunch of those, and then we start that with students. So
that's great.
Yeah, every aspect of it, we try to keep the school involved. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take off then.
Yeah, go for it.
So let me hear from you when
absolutely.
you want to come down.
Sure. We'll be in touch.
We'll.
Pleasure to meet you both, and
just
glad to
get
have you here
going
to
on
see the
this
place.
as soon as possible, if it's going to work out for you
Yeah,
guys.
sure.
This is awesome.
Yeah, glad you guys could stop by.
Cut down easy, huh? Guess I'll leave it.
Can I just pull in a fire? We're not freaking out.
Get up. Get them up. No. Let her down. Okay. All right. Okay, let her down. Let her down. Getting caught or something, huh?
Yeah.
There we go.
There, I think it was that.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Just tie your rope out of the way. I'll just have that plate. Okay. There you go, doggy. There's a twist that bit. Okay. You can just have to release the line over here. Okay guys, so we had a good trip yesterday up to see Toby and to see a potential place for Ken, and we'd kind of like your thoughts on it. Let us know in the comments what you think of the thought of the place. Do you think it'd be a great fit for Ken to be up there with all the students and Toby and his helpers? Let us know in the comments. So today I've got a bunch of things to do, so I better get at it, and I hope you guys have a great day. We shall see you next time here on Working Horses with Jim.